All right, council. It's 7:01. I'll call this public planning meeting to order. If I can get a motion to approve the agenda. Moved by Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Gardner. Any comments or questions? Seeing none. Call the vote. That carries. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Before we start, I read a meeting statement. Welcome to Aurora's public planning meeting. The purpose of this second public meeting is to inform the public and obtain public input regarding the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. For the planning application that will be considered by council tonight, the following process will occur. 1. Town planning staff will outline the purpose of the planning application being considered. 2. Then the applicant will be given an opportunity to make a presentation and address issues raised in the staff report or public concerns already filed. 3. Following these presentations, members of the public will be invited to offer their comments or concerns respecting the proposal. And 4. Either town staff or the applicant will answer your questions. I will keep track of the questions, and when I have several, I will direct them to whoever can best answer them. It is very important that the town receive the correct names and addresses of individuals having an interest in the planning application. Therefore, if you plan to speak to council at this meeting, or if you wish to be notified of any further council or committee meetings concerning the application being considered, you must complete one of the green interested party forms that Linda is holding up and give it to our committee coordinator sitting at the front, which is Linda. Thank you, Linda. Under the Planning Act, the applicant or residents have the right to appeal any decision of council on a planning application to the local planning appeal tribunal. But you must verbally express any comments or concerns here tonight, or submit any comments or concerns in writing to the town prior to council adopting an amendment. The tribunal may dismiss all or part of an appeal made in respect of an application. This public planning meeting is being audio and video recorded. Your name, address, comments, and any other personal information are being recorded according to the Municipal Act and the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. This will help our town clerk prepare accurate minutes and to create a record that is available to the general public, including the town's website. Questions about this collection should be directed to the town clerk, Town of Aurora. I will now ask the Deputy Town Clerk to confirm that notification to the public occurred as required by the Planning Act.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Respecting item 1, application for zoning bylaw amendment, Starlight Investments, 145 and 147 Wellington Street West, Part Lot 28, Plan 246, file number ZBA-2018-01. On May 3, 2019, a notice of public planning meeting was mailed to all interested parties and addressed property owners within a minimum of 120 meters of the subject lands. Public notification has been provided in accordance with the Planning Act.
Thank you. I will now ask the Director of Planning and Development Services to begin with the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll start off with the town planner, Matthew Peverini, will provide a short presentation on planning information, and then the applicant will then provide their presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and residents of Aurora. The subject application is a zoning bylaw amendment at 145-147 Wellington Street West. The subject application was before council and the public for a statutory public planning meeting in accordance with the Planning Act on May 23rd, 2018. At that meeting, council referred the applicant to work with staff and bring the matter back before a future public planning meeting. For a brief overview of the proposal, in general, the purpose of the amendment is to permit 53 stacked townhouse rental units, to reduce the parking requirements associated with the proposed development, and to reduce various setback requirements. The subject lands are located at the southeast corner of Wellington Street West and Murray Drive. To the north are a combination of single detached dwellings and townhouses. To the east is a townhouse complex and Wellington Public School. To the south is another townhouse complex, and to the west is Murray Drive and Aurora High School.
Just bring the mic a little bit closer to you.
Sorry.
It's okay. Thank you.
Currently on the subject lands are 2 apartment buildings, 1 7 and 1 6 story, with a total of 204 units. The apartments were constructed approximately in 1975, which predates the town zoning bylaw previously in effect. According to the applicant's parking study, there are currently 267 surface parking spaces servicing the site. There is also an outdoor swimming pool located at the northwest corner of the subject lands. The proposed application will be reviewed in the context of all provincial, regional, and municipal policies and legislation as outlined on this slide. As outlined in red on this slide, the subject lands are designated stable neighborhoods by the Town of Aurora official plan. It is important to note that the proposed stacked townhouse built form is a permitted use under the stable neighborhood designation. As outlined in red on this slide, the subject lands are currently zoned second density apartment residential, RA2, by the Town of Aurora Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 6000-17 as amended. The proposed RA2 exception zone will seek to permit stacked townhouse as a permitted use. It will seek a site-specific reduced parking rate, reduced setback requirements, and reduced drive aisle widths. All proposed changes are highlighted in Appendix A of the Public Planning Report. This chart highlights the parking requirements as outlined in the town zoning bylaw versus what the applicant is proposing. By breaking down the existing units, proposed units, visitor parking, and barrier-free parking, the zoning bylaw requires a total of 386 parking spaces. The applicant is proposing a total of 294 parking spaces distributed as shown in the second column of this chart. The revised site plan seeks to implement 3 stacked townhouse blocks as shown in brown on the site plan on the slide. Building 1 to the east will be 3 stories, and building 2 to the west will be 4 stories. Again, parking will be reconfigured, and the existing apartments and outdoor pool are to remain on the site. A general breakdown of the proposed units is outlined in this chart. Majority of the units are 2-bedroom, with the option for 1+den and 3-bedroom. A future site plan approval application will be required to implement the development. At this time, the applicant has not submitted an application for site plan approval. In this slide, here are some conceptual elevation renderings for the proposed buildings. The proposed buildings will be subject to an urban design peer review at the time of submission of a site plan approval application. As mentioned, this is the second public planning meeting for the subject application. In general, the revisions to the original plan include a reduction in the number of units from 64 to 53. The outdoor swimming pool is to remain. Parking reconfiguration, including now 294 available spaces. And the building in proximity to the easterly property line has been shifted westward for additional buffering. The revised submission has been circulated to departments and agencies for review. Comments have been provided to the applicant, and in general, all commenting entities are satisfied. However, there will be ongoing discussion for matters such as compatibility and appropriateness of the application and parking. Many elements of the proposal, such as a construction management plan, landscape and vegetation management plans, urban design, and cash in lieu, will be addressed as part of a future site plan application. Staff have received comments from the public prior to and at the statutory public planning meeting in May 2018. These comments have been included and responded to in Appendix B to the public planning report. In advance of this public meeting, comments from the public have been received as outlined on this slide. Generally, comments relate to the methodology used in the parking study and the strategy to deal with parking availability during and post-construction. For next steps, staff will take comments received from tonight's discussion and provide council with a recommendation report at a future general committee meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll go to the applicant.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of committee. I hope I'm speaking loud enough. My name is TJ Secura. I am a planner and principal with Design Plan Services Incorporated, here to give you information about the subject application. Starlight Developments is the owner and the applicant. They are here to answer any questions should they arise. We do have a consultant from Paradigm Transportation, the author of the parking study, Ms. Jill Jelke. So she can answer any questions specifically related to the methodology or the numbers with regards to parking calculations and parking proposed. We have been having many discussions with planning, and the owners have responded to planning's request for a reduction in density by removing density to get to the current plan. We are here to listen, and we've been actively meeting with the residents of the two buildings and the residents of the abutting condominium development to the east on Loring Doolittle Court. The changes to the proposal are a direct result of listening to those concerns and doing the best we can to address the specific concerns that were raised. Some of this might be a little bit of a duplication from the staff presentation, but the site is at the southeast corner of Wellington and Murray Drive. It's across the street from the high school, across Murray Drive. There's another school to the east and residential townhouse condos to the east and south, and residential townhouses with single detached dwellings on the north across Wellington. This is the official plan designation. You saw it's designated stable neighborhoods, and there's no change proposed to that designation. With regards to the zoning, the proposed zoning is to rezone the site to specific regulations to permit the proposed development of 56 new units. This is the original site plan that was submitted, and it was at the public meeting in 2018. And this is the new site plan. And if I kind of just flip back and forth, I think the main thing I just want to show is this is the pool in the northwest corner. And so you can see on the previous proposal that was proposed to be eliminated. We heard loud and clear that the residents wanted that kept. It has now been revised to be kept. In addition, this building 1 on the east has been moved further away from the existing condos at Loring Doolittle Court, and additional buffering has been proposed and landscaping along this line to provide an additional separation between the existing residents on Loring Doolittle and this apartment, these new development. Keep in mind that this apartment building is existing and no change is proposed to the building itself. All of the new units that are being proposed will be rental units. They will be included in 2 buildings. Building 1 on the southeast corner is an area that is currently existing parking, and there will be parking beneath these buildings at it's not an underground parking garage, but we call it subgrade. So the buildings are essentially on top of the parking, but it's open air parking underneath the buildings. Building 2 at the northwest is beside the existing pool. So the revisions include a reduction in the number of overall units, the retention of the pool, the reconfiguration of the east building, the reconfiguration of the parking area on the whole to try and maximize the number of spaces on the site, and adding the landscape buffer in the northeast to visually screen parking from Wellington Street itself and from the residents at Loring Doolittle Court. Tenant meetings were held on April 10th, 2018, on February 28th, 2019, in the lobby of each of the buildings. So there was an hour spent in the lobby of each building to give the residents a more informal chance to raise any concerns or ask any questions. The owner was there, I was there, and some of the operations people from Starlight were there as well. Also, there was a meeting with the condo board from Loring Doolittle Court on February 13th of 2019. So the owner's been actively trying to meet with and address any comments from the existing residents in the area. Concerns raised were largely centered around 3 issues: parking, the pool, and construction. Near Loring Doolittle, a larger buffer and landscaping, tall growth trees, and a new fence will be provided that meet the town requirements. The retention of the pool directly addressed that issue, and that was from the majority of residents that appeared at the first meeting. This plan here is the parking plan, and I know it's a bit hard to read up on the screen there. So currently there's a total on-site parking spaces of 267. The proposed will be 294. A parking study that's been provided shows that based on the data of parking usage on the site, that 294 space proposal will be adequate for the existing tenants and the new tenants, and will actually exceed the requirement based on the data that has been gathered to date on the existing usage. Parking during construction was raised at the tenant meetings. Starlight will continue to work with the residents of the building during construction and with the construction manager to keep as many tenants' parking spaces on site during construction as possible. Potential off-site solutions may be required. However, Starlight is going to do their best to keep everybody on site during construction, and that will be the details of where construction happens on site, where materials are stored, will come with the construction management plan that is part of the site plan approval process. Tonight we're just considering, and this application is considering the zoning of the property and whether these additional units can be permitted. The owner is building these themselves. They are owner-operated. Starlight will continue to operate this site after construction. These are primarily geared to families. There will be 1 bedroom plus a den, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, and that mix of units may change depending on any comments or concerns or final plans being submitted to staff. This is a high-quality product that is being proposed. And these renderings are from the original proposal, so one note I will make is on this drawing. This is building 2 at the corner of Wellington and Murray. This is where the reduction has happened. The units at the end here have been removed, which lowered the density and preserved the existing pool on site. The owner is providing upgraded finishings, stainless steel finishes on appliances. They're not a flipper to do this development and leave this site. They are an owner-operator who has invested a considerable amount of money in the existing buildings on the site and will continue to do so through upgrades and new construction. And their tenants are obviously important to them because their tenants are what keeps this site viable. And they don't want to do anything that's going to either jeopardize their existing tenants or create a product that is not marketable to new tenants. The owner has worked hard with staff, with the existing residents, the public, and the town. And I want to thank town staff for the many phone calls, meetings, emails, working to get to this point. And they will continue to do so to try and address all comments and questions as best as possible so that we can come forward in front of council with a recommendation report to have a zoning bylaw approved. That concludes my remarks, and I'm happy to answer any questions that council or the public may have.
Thank you very much. I'm going to open it up now to the public. Are there any members of the public that would like to come up and speak? If I can get you to state your name, your address, and you have 5 minutes, sir.
My name is Mitch McGuire. I live at 147 Wellington Street at apartment 212. I've been there, sorry, I frogged my throat, for 20 years. And my wife, Teresa, has actually lived in the same apartment for 34 years. Now, the biggest concern now is parking. They talked about a parking survey and doing data. Why do they need that? We have an on-site property management company, DMS Property Management, that handles, one of their jobs, the parking. We have numbered parking spots, and all tenants have assigned parking. They could come up and tell you exactly how many vehicles are currently in the parking lot assigned to tenants. Now, my numbers, yes, we have 267 parking spots. 247 are numbered for tenants. 141 are assigned to residents of 147. 106 are assigned to residents of 145. There are 11 visitor parking spots, which as of the fall, they are now paid to park. There are 7 barrier-free spaces between the 2 buildings and 2 employee-designated spaces. We've just undergoing some balcony work. During this reconstruction, they had to relocate some tenants away from the falling debris. We were told numerous times there are only 7 available parking spots in our lot. This is as of fall. So there's only 7 left. That means there are 240 tenant-occupied or tenant-assigned spaces. Parking survey says about 211 is wrong. DMS has those numbers. We have to provide our ownership to prove that we own that vehicle and we're assigned a spot, many tenants pay for their parking spots. So, adding 53 new townhomes, they're going to bump it to 294 parking spots in total. So that means only 27 extras. So 13 extra tenant spots, 15 more visitor spots, which is always good, but they dropped one for the barrier free. So they're adding 53 townhomes and only 13 more tenant parking spots. The math just does not add up. Surveys, you can look at it, people come and go, you can count how many cars come and leave, but every tenant has an assigned spot. We have stickers. Supposedly, if we park in the wrong spot, we'll get a ticket. The other question is, how many, we have 240 assigned spots right now. How many apartments are vacant? People come and go. At one point last year, when I did a survey, there was at least 11 vacant apartments. I don't think there's that many right now, but there's always vacancies. So we have 7 spare parking spots for how many empty apartments? Doesn't make sense. And now they're looking to, and your Aurora bylaw number 6000-17. Council approved it in June of 2017. The OMB approved it in January of 2018. The biggest thing is maneuvering space. 7 meters is barely enough for some larger vehicles. They want to reduce the maneuverability down to 6.4. That's even worse. And think about what happens when it snows. Where do they put the snowbanks? We lose even more room in the driving lane. We lose parking spaces when they do the snow. So instead of having 7 spare, we lose 10 to 12 because they have to put the snow somewhere. They cannot remove it every single time it snows. So they have to put it somewhere. People lose parking spots.
You have 1 minute.
That's a 1 minute warning? Okay,
1
I'm
minute
almost
warning.
done. Of course, they want to reduce the parking standards. They cannot supply enough parking spaces for everybody. By your own current rules under the bylaw, they need 385, and 70 of that, 77 would have to be visitors, and 8 would have to be for handicap. The other thing that wasn't mentioned is they also want the front yard provision, which is 5.5.3. They want to add 12 extra parking spaces at the end of each driveway, at the end of each entrance, which moves the parking lot almost to the sidewalk, where kids from the high school and the primary school walk on a daily basis. You're going to have a parking space within a couple of feet of a sidewalk, which is crowded with kids. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Any other members of the public? Good evening. If we can get your name, your address, and you have 5 minutes.
Yes, I did. My name is Luann Timbers, and I also live at 147 Wellington Street West. And I have a few concerns, and one is if, in fact, this does get approved, the fact that we have not been yet told where are they going to park, let us park while they go through all this construction work. We have a school right across from us. We can't use their parking lot. It's completely full. Murray Drive, the school parks all the way from our driveway all the way to Temperanceville. On the other side of us is all housing and Wellington Street. You can't park on those roads. And there's a public school adjacent on the other side. Then not once have we've asked, we have problems now finding parking spots. If they're not being used by, in your little memorandum, you said that the construction workers were going to team up and all come in one car to save the parking spots for us to use. Well, they're not. They all come in their own trucks and they park in the visitors' parking, which is now paid parking, and that's how they eliminated the problems with the parking spaces. They make our visitors now pay. But that isn't the issue. The issue is if this goes through, when they're making stage 1 and stage 2, where are they going to put us to park? And they have not addressed the issue, and it says right in your things, not addressed. Well, isn't that one of the first things that should be dealt with? Where are you going to put all the tenants parking while you decide to add more buildings on our site, which is already a box. But anyway, that is really a concern. There's a lot of elderly. There's a lot of children. The construction and the activity in that square is just going to be too great. And where are we going to put the cars amongst the dump trucks, the backhoes, and everything else that they use? It's just, where are we going to go? And they won't tell us, and they've never told us, because there's nowhere in the vicinity for us to legally park. And I wish that would be addressed with the public before you grant them approval to go any further. There should be some sort of plan for the construction period, not later, decide it later. Do it now, so we know where we're going. We can't walk a mile. You got elderly, you got kids, we're gonna carry our groceries, or are we gonna get taxi chits? It's just unbelievable what they're asking. It's really an inconvenience with noise. It's been 3 years already with their current construction that they're doing on the building. And now you want to take another 2 years and make even 10 times more noise, more dirt, more danger. I mean, and making the parking lots even smaller, the space is even smaller. You're lucky if you don't have 2 new dings a week as it is, with people not parking directly in their little lines. And if you want to shrink it, God forbid if you have an Escalade. But anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak? Good evening. If we can get your name, your address, and you have 5 minutes, ma'am.
Yep, my name is Julia. I live at 147 Wellington Street West. And like the other two person that spoke before, concerned about the parking spot. Last year at the meeting, they said, oh, we have a lot of extra open spaces in the parking lot. We don't. Most of us work from 3 to 11 at night. Some of them work from 11 to 7. I work from 5 in the morning to 1, 2 in the afternoon. And when I get up at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, the parking lot's full. Where are we going to park the whole time that they're doing this construction? We have nowhere to park. Our visitors have nowhere to park. And when you do these two, if you're going to put this building up, how much more crowded are you going to put the 2 buildings that exist there now? We're going to get so crowded that we're going to bump into each other when we're either exiting the parking lot, entering the parking lot, walking. It's just going to be too crowded, and they got to take parking in consideration. We cannot park on the streets. Where are we going to park, and how is this going to work out? We have next to no parking spots left in the morning. If you come at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, you see the parking lots are all full. I've had visitors come and says, where do I park? Because there are no parking spots available, and this is in the daytime. So putting these buildings there is going to cut down everything that we have nowhere. How are we going to move around? How are we going to do our things? There's a lot of people in the building that need handicap parking spots. If you narrow the handicapped parking spots, how are they going to get in and out of their vehicles? You know, they need that, and they also need to be able to access the building without having to walk quite a distance, because most of them can't do a whole lot of walking. So can somebody, like they said before, let us know what's going on with the parking so we know what to do, because I find it ridiculous that we are not going to be able to park in our spots if this goes ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other members of the public? Welcome. If we can get your name, your address, and you have 5 minutes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Ibrahim Hosseini, living at 2 Bill Drive. I'm the neighbor, but there was too many talk about the parking lot. I'm looking at the longer-term parking issue that we would have here, because I see that in the street that I live, every single day, a lot of cars coming to pick up the student. When we look at the cars that coming out of the parking lot of these 2 buildings, parking inside the street or other side anywhere, that we are imposing more danger to the schools and to students that coming out lot of students every day commuting around. And this is one of the major things that I would ask you guys to consider for the planning for this application. At the same time, I am sure that you are looking at, but as a reminder, probably you can look at the green issue that you would have, because when they are building more townhouses, they are going to get rid of some trees or some green area. So that's another issue that it would impose with this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other members of the public? Good evening. If we can get your name, your address, and you have 5 minutes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Heidi Stokeland. My address, I'm at 147 Wellington Street. I'm just coming on a whim. I wasn't intending on speaking, but I feel compelled to say something in that two big issues I feel are safety and mental health. And to make two invitations to you all to come any morning at 8:30 or afternoon at 2:30 to see the absolute mayhem that goes on in this area. It's incredible. And so to try and picture what it would look like to have dump trucks and backhoes and everything going on, I think there's going to be a serious, severe accident at some point. There's no room. There's just no room. The cars are parked there, and to have any kind of big vehicle going through there, it just won't work. But again, please come and see for yourself. And also, in regards to mental health, thanks to what Luann said, it's been 3 years that all the people have been going on with renovations and going on in the two apartments. I've been there for the last year and experiencing what's happened with these balconies. It's driven people almost mad. I could have people to talk to you about this. Just the jackhammering and the noise. It bellows up into the apartment buildings like you have no idea. So again, if you'd like to have an idea, please come on any Monday morning after 7 or even before 7 to hear the garbage trucks when they come. It sounds like a bomb going off in the area. And there's a lot of old elderly people who live in the buildings. There's a lot of people who have various health issues that they don't leave the area during the day. There's a lot of children who would be in the vicinity during this construction, and the vibrations. I think again, you'd be pushing people's mental capacity to a limit that's beyond understanding what this DMS would want to do this for. I appreciate what the man said about the green. Yes, this is huge too. This is like a very small part of green left in that area. And for what? I just don't understand. For greed? Like, why does this have to happen? It's just money, and I don't get it. But thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other members of the public who'd like to come up and speak? We can get your name, your address, and you have 5 minutes, sir.
Yes, my name is Luis Lino. I live at 4 Loring Dolittle Court. I am in the townhouse beside the buildings. Our concern was a few. One of them is how the construction will affect the structure of our townhouse, because one of the buildings, the two buildings, is going to be right beside one of the buildings that's part of our condo at Loring Dolittle. And they also mentioned we'd like a study, and we'd like prior to the construction that a study would be done before they start the construction, because we don't want any damage in our structure, right? And also they mentioned about the parking is not underground, but in a lower level. We were also concerned about the water drainage and all the snow that's going to be piling up there. And our condo is descending towards Wellington, and as the new buildings will also probably have it. I know that all the plumbing will be probably according to bylaws and construction permits, but we are concerned about that too. The other concern was about all those buildings being built right beside one of my neighbor's windows, and all the parking lot added to the other block of our condo. And we really, as they mentioned about the fence and about the green area and the green the trees that they were going to add it onto this construction, we really would like to be considered before the construction starts and be approved. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak? Okay, I'm seeing none. Mr. Waters. Oh, you have one more? Oh, yes. Okay. Perfect. So we can just get your name and your address, and you have 5 minutes, sir.
Okay, there we go. Name's Gary Wayne, 147 Wellington Street. I'm going to, just questions for all of you. Do you have pets? You have a dog, cat, bird, whatever? Okay, we have a various number of animals in our area: squirrels, bluebirds, cardinals. We feed on a regular basis. The green spot that we're talking about surrounds the building is a total of 3 feet wide. It's a strip. It goes around the edge. That's our green space. And a little bit of a mount in the front facing Murray Drive. A little bit of a mount facing Wellington at that time, okay? In the process of building stackers, I've been in this business I started in 1976 with Alpa Industries, which is Condrain, Coneco, you pick the name, they're all brothers, sisters, aunts, and uncles. And we literally went out and destroyed childhood dreams and built on spots and called it a green spot. We'd rip out 1 million trees, stick one in the ground, say, you're living at treetop now. The wonderful green spots. So if you don't have grass for your little animal that you take out in the morning or released to have his or her thing done, where are they going to go? On the sidewalk, which we've now turned into a concrete city? When you're parking in stackers, yes, it is above ground. Yes, they will park underneath there. But yes, they're people too. They might have company. So where are their people going to park? You're looking at a square box, which has neighborly gone around for years the same way. Matter of fact, these were the first apartments that were allowed to go over 7 feet. Everything else in Aurora was only allowed 6 feet back then because of the fire department at that time could only reach so high. So this was a historical event when they managed to go 7 floors. But it's strictly between you people. You are in charge of this decision. What you say is what happens. But try to remember, you're not relocating cars. You're relocating the wildlife that we have left in the town of Aurora. Because going north towards 404, we've built condos, we've built houses. Townwood came in and built the whole back end of that. The deer that used to live there, they're gone. The beavers, the other animals, they're all gone. And then when one shows up on the property, everybody takes a hemorrhage because there's an animal on their property. Well, excuse me, he used to live there before you did. Okay? So it's up to you guys. What your decision, you make it. But try to make the right one. Because the squirrel's got no place left to go if you take the tree out. They're not all going to live in the same house. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak? Seeing none. Mr. Waters, I have 5 questions. I'm not sure who wants to answer a few of them, probably the applicant. The first one is that the math doesn't add up when we're speaking about the parking. How many spots? If we can get an answer on that one.
Hi, good evening. I'm Jill Julke, a Senior Project Manager with Paradigm Transportation Solutions Limited. So with regards to the parking, are you asking for the existing today or what is proposed in the future?
Well, it's a little bit of both. From my understanding, is what they were asking is that what currently exists. They're at I wrote it down, so I'll just 247 spots are being used right now by residents. So therefore, if you're adding only to 296 and there's only 267 spots, how are the 53 new units going to be parking there?
Okay, so existing on the site today, there's 267 total spaces, and it's my understanding that a handful of those are unassigned to residents at this time. I don't know the exact number that are unassigned, but that is the ones that are allocated for tenants, which is 251 spaces. There's 11 visitor spaces and 5 employee spaces today. Our parking study that we conducted in May of last year was conducted on a Saturday and a Wednesday and a Thursday between the hours of 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. and 10 p.m., which is what we find to be the periods of highest peak activity. The results of that survey said that overall, between the tenant, the visitor, and the employee parking spaces, the requirement was 1.04 spaces per unit. That was required to accommodate all of those during the peak periods of demand. Then the applicant is now proposing 294 spaces for the 257 units, which comes in at 1.11 spaces per unit, which right now it's my understanding as well that they'll be allocating 1 per tenant. In cases where a tenant requires an additional space, they will look at it on a case-by-case basis. So the total requirement in the future based on the current parking requirement of 1.04 is 268 spaces will be required to service all the demands during the peak period of parking activity, which is a surplus of 27 spaces, which can be allocated to visitors, or it can also be allocated to employees during certain times of the day via signage saying that between 8 and 5, the employees can park in these spaces, and from 5 p.m. until 8 a.m. during the peak periods of tenant parking requirements or visitor requirements, they can be signed that they're available for other people to use during the overnight periods.
Okay. This one's also parking, I guess, so maybe we'll direct it to you as well. Where will the existing tenants park during the construction?
That is outside the scope of the work that we undertook. So that is something that I believe the applicant can answer that question.
Perfect.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I mentioned in my presentation, a construction management plan has not been formulated at this time because there are no approvals. There's nothing to build or in what form it's going to be permitted. So when it gets to the site plan stage, that is when the details of material stockpiling, construction traffic, which buildings are going to be built first, which buildings are going to be built second, those details will be firmed up at that time. We are not at that stage yet. We are still well in advance. What the owner is committing to do is to make sure that that construction management plan accommodates as many residents on site during construction as possible. If it's possible, all residents will be accommodated on site during construction. If it's not possible, off-site locations may be required. There could be an arrangement such as in the summer months when the school is not in operation on the west side of Murray, that parking lot would be utilized for tenant parking. That would be on a temporary basis only until those spots free back up on the subject property when the construction phases out of that area or phases out of the point where people can now begin to park back on the site. Starlight has operated many buildings and has many construction projects. In other examples, in other properties, they have been able to accommodate 100% of their tenants on site during construction. That is the goal. If it doesn't happen, alternative arrangements will be made, and Starlight will work with their tenants as best as possible to address those concerns.
Thank you. And accessible spots, will they be narrowed?
No, I heard that, and I made a note. There's no proposal to provide accessible spaces that are narrower than the town standard. Whatever the town standard is for accessible spaces, that will be maintained on site.
And I have number 4 and 5 in regards to condo next door. What will you guys be doing, will the applicant be doing to ensure structural safety of the condo next door, and as well as any making sure that there's no water drainage issues that are going to occur with the new structure being built?
So I'm just going to point to an area. Right here is the closest point of this building to the side property line, and this will be 10.58 meters. So the proposed construction will be at least 30 feet away from the property line of the existing dwellings on Loring Doolittle Court, and then there's obviously a setback from their property line to their building. The owner met with the condo board with their engineer on site. The changes to the grading that are proposed as a result of these buildings will not have any negative effect on the drainage on the abutting properties. They're not permitted to. They're not proposing to, and they're not permitted to. So there will be no change in grading or drainage on abutting properties. And with regards to structural integrity, the construction's over 30 feet away. I'm not sure how different that is than somebody putting a new subfloor in their garage next door to your house where they're chipping out concrete and redoing concrete. It would be almost the same effect. There should be no issues with that. The owner can consider a pre-construction survey of the existing dwellings on Loring Doolittle to ensure that if there is any damage during construction, they will be responsible for it.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Waters, did you have any other questions that you picked up?
There was a question raised through Mr. Mayor. There was a question raised about the apartment vacancies in terms of how many apartments were vacant. And there was also questions about maneuverability on site because there is a reduction in the standard that is being required or proposed rather. And I believe that sums it up. I think you've covered the balance of them.
Cool. Do you want to?
Okay, so the second one was maneuverability. The first one was, vacancy. The vacancy fluctuates depending on people coming and going. I think at current there are 2 vacant units. There has been up to 11 vacant units in the recent past. So it fluctuates just on people choosing to live on or off the site. I just wanted to confirm one other thing that was mentioned that was not asked by council. Anybody who has a parking space or multiple parking spaces today will not lose those spaces. New tenants coming in, so if an existing tenant leaves and they have 2 spaces and a new tenant comes in, they will only be offered 1 assigned parking space. So through attrition, that's going to reduce the number of tenants with multiple parking spaces and open up more parking on the site. But please be assured that any tenant who has a parking space or 2 parking spaces today will maintain and keep those parking spaces as long as they live in their unit. The new tenants will be offered 1 space per unit. With regards to maneuverability, so there is a proposal to narrow the drive aisle widths from what the bylaw requires. That is to recognize the existing condition on site. The existing aisles on the site do not meet the bylaw requirement for aisle width, and that is just going to be maintained. Whatever the aisle widths are is going to be used as the standard throughout this site. The whole parking lot is not getting ripped up and reconfigured. The parking lot will exist for the most part as it exists today. Only in the areas of the new construction will it be changing. And the only other thing that I did hear that wasn't a direct question was eliminating green space on the site. The proposed buildings are in areas that is currently parking. There is only a very small area adjacent to the existing pool that is not parking today that will be new building. The rest of it is within an existing parking lot. So it's not as if there are multiple trees and green spaces being removed to achieve this proposal. I think I've answered all the questions.
Yes. Thank you very much. Are there any members of the public that would like to come up and speak for a second time? If we can get you to state your name again and your address, you have 5 minutes.
My name is Mitch McGuire. I live at 147 Wellington. The east building where they're planning to put it, that will eliminate between 80 and 100 parking spots. That's the bulk of the parking in the building area. So they have to relocate 80 to 100. There's not room on the property. There's nowhere else in the area that will fit 80 to 100 vehicles unless you go a few miles away. And they forgot about the one big green space they got rid of. Does this mouse work? Okay. Right in this area here, where they now have, I think, 20-ish new parking spots, that's all green. It's got trees. That's a lawn. There is a walkway through it, but the building actually held a barbecue for all the tenants last year. Well, I should say the property management company, who should be here and can give you exact numbers for vacancies and parking spots assigned. But that is a big green area that disappears because they need parking. And also the area beside the building, all the way down to the sidewalk. That one, I believe on the map it shows 6.6 maneuverability space in meters. So yes, our current one is 6.4, but they're not planning on putting in the regulation size of 7. They want to shrink it as much as possible, put a snowbank there, and you barely have a car's width. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public? If I can get you to state your name and your address. You have 5 minutes, ma'am.
Yes, my name is Kim Pearsall. I live at 18 Loring Doolittle Court. My unit is the one that is directly affected by the proposed development. We did have a meeting with them as a member for the board of directors for Loring Doolittle Court. I am a member. My concern is they did make a number of changes to the proposed plan. However, if this is only meeting to discuss the actual buildings, where is the assurances that down the line, if this is permitted, that we're going to get our guarantees? They promised us a higher fence. They promised us landscaping with higher trees. What height are the trees going to be allowed to be put in right from the start? Are these trees going to be so close that they actually affect the roots of our property long term, with the roots going underneath the buildings? What kind of trees they're going to plant? Like, it's hard to see long term what they want to do when right now it's only this building being approved. We don't know what we're going to get down the line as far as the guarantees that they committed to us.
Thank you. Any other members of the public? If I can get you to state your name again and your address. You have 5 minutes.
Luann Timbers again. I'm sorry to bother you. I just want to, I'd like to bring up one more question. The building that they are going to put by the pool, the one stacked townhouses, that is going to be almost adjacent to, like I say, the intersections of Wellington Street and Murray Drive, which with their high school there with numerous cars and attendees and students. If they are not going to be using, this is why I wish they had a construction site plan shown that we know where we're going to go and what we're going to do. And this isn't for a week, this is for a year. This is going to go, we've been already going through this for 3 years with renovations outside of the building, never mind putting up new ones. But if they're going to have no trucks, no dump trucks, no work vehicles, no nothing are supposed to be on the site, are they going to be able to park on Murray Drive, their dump trucks and everything else? And that's a main intersection. That's a school crosswalk. Right at that corner is where hundreds and hundreds of school kids cross every morning and every afternoon at 3 o'clock. It's always busy. It's a very busy, busy road. So if they're not going to use our facilities to park, which they do already, they're builders, where are they going to put all these trucks and workers' cars? Where are they going to put us? Should they not be required to show a change in traffic, do a report on the traffic and the volume of kids that are going to be using that sidewalk for all the months they plan on doing, at least on this one front corner? These are just basic questions. If they're not going to be inside, where are they going to be? You can't find room to park us. Where are you going to put all their equipment and all their trucks and their wood and their supplies and their... It's just a never-ending... It's too much to absorb in that one little space that's full already with tenants and kids, and they won't give us an answer where they're going to park us. So I would ask that the town at least get a complete site plan from them as to, for construction purposes, as to how long they are going to have us. I park in the front. I will be involved in that front move. My spot, all that side is going to be gone. All the visitors parking, all the front, both sides. Where are they going to go? You know what I mean? That should be addressed before anything's addressed. You can't get a parking space now. If you own an apartment and you have 2 cars in your family and you have a daughter and she wants to buy a car now so she can go to work, the answer is, well, you can't have a parking space. There isn't there's none to give you. So if we have a problem now, how are we not going to have a problem in the future? Their answer at the head office, someone's in my spot. Well, go find another one. Where are we going to go? And that's not fair to the tenants who are paying high costs to live there, especially the new tenants. It's truly not the best place. And the danger on that one side, just at that one corner alone, never mind the back end, but that is right at a main intersection and a school crosswalk. And that's all I have to keep saying. Sorry.
Okay, thank you very much. Hey. If we can get your name and address again?
Yeah, Julia from 147 Wellington. As the gentleman and the lady here were saying, they investigated the parking. Well, you don't do it in the middle of the night when everybody's at home. Because like I said, everybody has different hours to work in. And we all have different hours that we come home. If you do it Saturday, Sunday, everybody goes away for the weekend. You have to do it through the work days, Monday to Friday, and you'll see, like I said before, 3 to 4 in the morning, everything's full. If maybe there's 1 or 2, because when I leave in the mornings, there's 2 or 3 people behind me leaving at the same time as I do. And the other thing is planning. If you're going to do a construction like this, you plan ahead. Where are you going to put the equipment? Where are you going to store the lumber? Where are you going to store everything before you even try to allocate everybody's parking spaces or that you're going to do the building? It's common sense. I work in retail. If I'm going to change a counter, I have to make sure I have all the stuff to do it, all the stuff that's got to go on it, and the time to do it. That's all got to get planned ahead. So does this. They have to plan ahead where they're putting the lumber, where they're putting the trucks, where they're putting the dump bins, and where everybody's parking. If you don't do this ahead of time, where to store the lumber, where you're going to put the trailer for the people that come in and out, they sign in and out of work, you have to have this all planned out and all sorted out before you can even think of maybe submitting something to change and crowd the building more than it is now. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, if we can get you, say your name again and your address,
Yeah,
please. Thank you.
I wrote it down. Okay, name's Gary Wayne, 147 Wellington Street West. Do you have somebody from your planning department in here today?
We have two.
You have two of them, okay. You're familiar with the planning, right? On how, when you put in a brand-new building is going in, first you gotta get the mudslingers in, but before you get them in, you've gotta survey that lot, put fencing around it for safety, okay? Once you've got the safety fence in, where you're gonna park your trailers, because you have to have management on site all the time to make sure everything's coming through, whatever. If you take a look at the back parking lot where these buildings are gonna be suggested, they're not in process, like the gentleman said, but suggested, there's a fence. We'll have to go from our wooden fence right over to 145, cut out that whole back parking lot. So anything west is east, I'm losing directions here. Anything east of that, in that, when you come around the building like this on that road, anything east of that's gone. There will be no parking there whatsoever for safety concerns. Because one, if you look at the jobs that are out at the highway out by the 404, all the builders that are there, Paradise Home and all the rest of them, some of them changed their names, but anyway, you take a look at that, you have forklifts in there, okay? You have crews in there building. Each crew has their own stuff. Now, if he's gonna start building these houses, these apartments or stackers, as they changed the name to, okay? Where are you gonna put all those cars? Plus, you're not carrying your equipment in from the road. Nobody does that. You gotta come in, get into the site, where you're working, you offload your vehicle or whatever. Now, you've got the industry, the forklifts, you've got the trailers, you've got the safety fences, you have to have all the agenda passed before anybody can get on that property, okay? So technically what you've done now is eliminated the whole back section of the both buildings, and the people that live in 145 on that corner won't be able to use their door to come out to the parking lot, because they'll have to go out to the front, out to Wellington Street to leave the house, because that has to be sectioned off by law. Okay, if you take a look at that, for the time period, it's gonna do for 64 units, or 54, whatever the number was, you're looking exactly from the time it's scraped, put in, poured, the houses are built, the crews have come in, the material's been stacked, you're looking approximately 26 months to 3 years before it's completely finished, because you come in phases. First, you build them. Second time, you got the framers come in. Then the interior guys come in. Then the drywall guys come in. You got the electricians, you got et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, until these houses are complete. And they're all done by phases. They're not just, we walk in, unless they got a helicopter big enough, come in and drop it in place and it's done. It just doesn't happen. Okay? But other than that, it's the last of my whining. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. Any other members of the public like to speak? Good evening. If we can get your name, your address, and you have 5 minutes, ma'am.
My name's Leslie Webster, and I live at 147 Wellington Street West. I've been there since 1991. Seen a lot of things come and go. In the last 3 years, there's been a lot of construction inside and outside the building. My biggest issue is safety for our elderly and our children during this construction time. You have 2 schools, one on either side. The children have to have safe area to be able to go outside and access play area. And if all this construction is going on, it's hard for the elderly mentally, especially those who cannot leave their apartment. The noise has been unbearable. And if it goes on for like another 3 or 4 years, it's going to be a big problem mentally for a lot of people. We've been suffering with it now for 3 years. But I just don't want to see our children suffer either in not having a safe environment to be able to walk out of our building into. You know, because, I mean, with all this construction going on, what are they going to do when they go outside? They're going to have to be, like, guarded because of all these vehicles and everything else coming in and out of the building, parking lot and stuff. I mean, like, our kids will go through the property now to get to the elementary school. With all the construction, they're going to have to go around the road with all the traffic. I mean, the traffic going in and out of Aurora High School is, like, incredible in the morning. And I'm surprised there's not an accident there every morning, because they block our driveway with traffic. Sometimes you got to wait 5-10 minutes to get out of the driveway because the school students and getting dropped off are blocking the traffic. It's a horrible, horrible situation for vehicles, traffic, and whatnot. So, like I say, my concern is safety for the people that live there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public like to speak? Seeing none, Council, I will close this public portion of the meeting. Council, if any of you have questions to the applicant, now's the time. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Thank you. Just I want to get some clarification on the parking spots earlier. Your representative said there's 267 spaces, 251 assigned to tenants, and so forth. But in our report, there says 290 surface spaces. So why would our report say 290 and yours say 267?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can't resolve a difference in the report. The transportation impact study and parking utilization study has been reviewed and accepted and deemed acceptable by staff. So I'm not sure why there is a difference in the number that they quoted.
So we're absolutely certain the 267 is the right number.
I believe there was a question about that prior to the last public meeting. So I think that the transportation consultant went out and physically counted every single space.
Perfect. Just want to get the right number. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. Just a quick question. I know that they had mentioned some issues about the snow removal, and they have a good point with that. And I'm just wondering what plans you had moving forward with that. Where would you put the snow?
The snow removal tends to be more of an operational issue. I know that snow has been physically removed from this site in the past. So during a large event, the crew that's hired by the management company will go in and with dump trucks take snow off site. I personally have visited the site during the summer and the winter time. And in the winter time, I can see how snow removal might be an issue because there are cars still parked in spaces at all hours of the day. So if there was an opportunity for the snow removal crew to go in when there were no cars, they would be able to efficiently and effectively clear all the snow out of the parking spaces. When you have a couple of cars and a couple of spaces, it's difficult to clear snow in and among those cars. Snow removal will be examined in greater detail, and whatever operational needs arise will be put into place if this comes to fruition.
Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to also ask about the parking with construction, and I know that you did give an answer, and one of the things you had mentioned was the school across the street in the summer months, but from what I understand, the parking there is actually worse in the summer because of all the students that come from outside of Aurora to do summer school, according to our bylaw anyway. So I'm not so sure that's really a solution. Have you looked at other solutions other than utilizing that spot, or have you talked to the school?
Mr. Mayor, through you to Councillor's question, that was just one idea that I threw off the top of my head. That investigation and the detailed location of off-site spaces has not been investigated. We have not gone and asked for agreements with other landowners to park on their site. So the short answer is no, there are no concrete solutions in place today, but those would be in place if this came to fruition.
Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. And I understand that you're waiting for approval to have a site plan and have some answers on this. But I do agree with the safety of the kids. I went through 4 years of Aurora High. I know what it's like there. I've witnessed dump trucks on the side of the road, and it is mayhem, and it is very extremely dangerous. And it does concern me that we don't have some sort of plan in place to maintain the safety of the students that are walking to school there, whether it be with traffic aids, pylons. I really don't know, and I'm not really hearing any kind of plan at all to address that before moving forward, and I think that's something that's important to address.
Again, through you, Mr. Mayor, again, we're at the zoning stage now. The implementation of construction timing, it has not been detailed out yet. We are more than happy to work with staff to come up with some kind of plan that will address those very specific issues, whether that be traffic cones, pylons, blocking off, staging somewhere else. We will work with staff to ensure that we try and satisfy that.
Okay, perfect.
Councillor Gillett?
That's good. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you tell me, with the stacked townhouse units, how many, I think somebody said how many bedrooms they're going to have? How many people are they intended to accommodate?
So there are a mix of unit types proposed. There will be,
I'm trying to figure out.
2-bedroom units. It looks like 33 2-bedroom units in block 1. Sorry, in block 1, there will be 18 2-bedroom units. In block 2, there will be 33. So we have 18, 15 for a total of 33 total blocks 1 and 2, and then building 2 will be 20 for a total of 53. That's all right on the site plan. I apologize. It's not easy to list these numbers off, but it is all detailed on the site plan that was submitted.
Thank you. I don't need the exact numbers. I'm trying to figure out the parking as well. So according to the proposed exception zone, the developer is going to have to provide 294 spaces. And you said that nobody who lives there now is going to lose a space. So there's 247 assigned spaces now. So if you just do this simple math and you have to provide 294 spaces minus the 247 that are currently occupied, you come up with 47. And we have the 53 townhouses, and we can assume that some of them will be occupied by 2 or 3 or possibly 4 people. So we've got 47 spaces left to accommodate the townhouses, but we haven't accommodated any visitors or accessible parking. So I don't know, can you put those numbers together for me to make some sense of it?
I'm going to ask Ms. Julke to come back
Thank
up here,
you.
but I mean, the main issue is that the utilization of the site currently is at a rate that is going to be exceeded if this is approved as it is. So there will actually be more spaces per unit post-construction than there are on site today, based on how many spaces are utilized today.
Can you help me figure this out?
Hello. To answer your question, what's happening now is, like my fellow here said, is that you're gaining a total of 26 spaces over and above what is on the site today, post-construction. So the ratio that's required now to service the development is 1.04 spaces per unit, inclusive of tenant, visitors, and resident demand. Well, as I should say, as of May of last year when we conducted our parking study. Post-construction, there will be a total of 1.11 spaces per unit provided. And what we're finding historically is that rates of auto ownership are actually decreasing in general throughout the GTA and West, which results in lower parking demands, because if you don't own a vehicle, you don't need a place to park one. And the other thing that we find with developments that have a parking supply that is lower than what is required under the bylaw is that if tenants are looking to rent in said buildings, if parking is not available, then they will probably not consider renting in the building.
And thank you. Follow up. I do understand that, but with the there are 26 more proposed spaces than are at present. 267 plus 26 is 293. Somehow I got 294. But if everybody stays in place, let's say that everybody wants to stay in place, that only leaves 26 new spaces to accommodate all the townhouses.
Correct.
I mean, it may not, I'm just talking about, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. I'm just saying. And you've got 53 stacked townhouses with more than one person in it, probably. It's not making sense. Perhaps, as you're right, we want people to use public transit. We know that they're not doing that as much as we would like them to. We've put a lot of money into it, so we can't count on people using public transit. But even if you look at the exception zone is basically providing one space per dwelling unit. So that's 204 apartments. And are we counting the stacked townhouses as one dwelling unit?
Each one is one dwelling
One
unit.
dwelling unit. So that's 257. You're providing 294. I mean, at the end of the day, maybe in 10 years, that's what we'll have. We'll have 204 and 53, 257. But we're still pretty tight because visitors parking you need to provide. Do you know how many spaces for visitors? 26. So that's 273, you're providing 294 handicap. So it will work out in theory, but it won't work out in practice now. And that's my concern.
And these are things that will be done through a parking management plan that the developer can put in place or the applicant can put in place through this process. And that can identify specifically how they are going to allocate parking going forward, what's going to happen with the existing parking, and how the plan would essentially be that anybody who applies for a new unit would be made fully aware of parking availability or non-availability, and the decision would be up to the person wishing to rent a unit whether or not they wanted to move into the building.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But, we're here as a council and we're here to take care of our residents, and our residents are living there now, and we don't know what's going to happen in the future. So what you're proposing is not going to work for now. And the other thing is I don't know where any of the trucks are going to be accommodated. We've had this problem before with construction vehicles, and they're very large, and the developer has picked a difficult place to do this because it's at a major intersection. So I'm just having trouble with this. Thank you for keeping the pool.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Just to the developer. Yeah, I think we've got some concerns with the parking, as you can hear, a little bit worried about it, actually. I can't really, it's not clear to me, but just a couple of things. When the residents that have permitted parking now, they're paying for it. You did say they're not in jeopardy of losing their spots, right, during this construction? Because that's really important to understand clearly.
Sorry, I didn't say not during construction. During construction, they could be relocated, but if they have two spaces will be relocated.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm a little worried about that. But what we can do then, I know it's not detailed here, but when you come back, we'll need a full-blown detailed parking plan, right? you've done a study saying it's going to be okay, it's going to be accommodated, but I'm really worried about the construction period and the impact on the residents. So when you come back, I'd like you to truly mark out and schedule a schematic of everyone's spots and whether they're staying and then where they're going to go, because it's really important to them to understand how they're going to be impacted during this time. And for me, it's a real, the inconvenience will last quite some time. I don't know how long this project will go on for, probably a year, 2 years, 3 years. And it'll be really hard on the residents. So that's really important to me, and I think everyone here. So I know there's lots of numbers floating around, and like you said, there's going to be a guarantee, perhaps relocation. I just need to know that plan really clearly. I know it's not the time, I think you're saying
Counselor,
it's going to come when.
Do you have a question for the applicant?
Oh, yeah.
We're going to get to comments after if you have a question
Oh,
for
I
the
was going
applicant.
to say, do you have that plan? But you don't. The detailed plan.
No, the construction is at least 2 to 3 years away if
Right.
we were approved tonight.
If you're approved,
which
okay.
We're not expecting, obviously.
Right.
So there's no opportunity to make arrangements with any off-site location. I mean, how can you enter an agreement and say, in 3 years from now, I'm going to need some parking spaces from you?
Right.
So I'm a bit, we will do our best to try and get as much detail as possible, but keeping in mind that we're predicting out 2 to 3 years from
Sure.
now, or 2 to 3 years from construction.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to come up with those details. I mean, where you're going to store lumber, at this point, the applicant doesn't even know how much lumber they're going to need.
Because you don't know what you're building yet.
But you don't know what you're building. How many dump trucks are you going to need? What is the construction timing? How quick are they going to be on and off the site? There's a
Sure.
lot of details that we can't work out at this stage. And that's why the developer and applicant do this in a staged manner where this is the zoning first.
Sure.
If the zoning is approved for something, then they will go to that detailed design stage, because if they don't get the zoning, there is no detailed design, there's nothing. So I appreciate
Understood.
the comments, and I mean, we hear parking is
You heard the
a
concern.
concern.
Yeah, thank you. Through Mr. Mayor, I apologize. You're right. There is a step to this whole process, and I'm already thinking, you're at cart before the horse. I'm thinking, if this gets approved, what are we going to do? So I'm already thinking that way, but yeah, I think that's it for me right now. We'll look at the report and for staff in a minute. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Humphries. Councillor Kim, to the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and to the applicant. So residents had concerns over some trees being felled. You probably know that we have a tree placement policy, and so just want to reconfirm that there is a tree replacement plan. If not existing now, that will be.
Yes, that's the plan that's up on the screen right now. This is the landscaping,
Okay.
proposed landscape plan.
Yes, right. The adjacent town homeowners, they had concerns over, any structural or damages that might result during the process of construction. Do you envision that there might be some contractual or some kind of guarantees that you can offer them, by the site plan process, to kind of just give them some sound relief?
Absolutely. One of the comments was, where do we get our assurances that the applicant will do what they're saying they will do? Well, when the site plan application goes in, securities are held by the town so that what is proposed must be done. Otherwise, those securities aren't released. So there's definitely obligations on behalf of the landowner when they put that site plan application in to do what they propose to do.
Councillor Kim.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Councillor Gallo.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, my questions have been...
Is it to the applicant?
They've already been answered,
Oh,
and,
okay.
and I don't want to reiterate the parking issues, but they're a concern for me as well, so they need to be addressed.
Thank you, Councillor Gallo. Before I close this part, I do have one question. I mean, and it is to do to parking, because I'm just struggling, I think, as everyone is, with some of the math and some of the numbers. When I look at it, it was mentioned that there will be more parking per unit after. So you said 1.1, but when I do the count, we have 204 apartments currently, and you have 267 spots, and that works out to 1.3 per unit.
forgive me, I'm going to rely on Jill if I get this wrong. The utilization rate is not that every single spot is used today. And that's based on the site surveys that are done by the parking consultant. So the parking consultant has said, based on the way the property is used today, how many spaces those 204 units use, when new 53 units are constructed, there will actually be a greater ratio of parking to units than what is used right now. Not 100% of the spaces are used today, based on the site surveys done by the parking consultant.
And fully appreciate that that's utilization, but when we're just speaking about how many available spots are, there currently per unit, there's more available spots currently than there will be in the proposed plan. Per unit.
Not if
available.
not if the utilization stays the same.
We're not talking utilization. I'm talking about just actual spots.
Actual spots. So what you're saying is the ratio of spots to units today will be lower than the ratio of spots to units post-construction.
Yes.
Forget about utilization.
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. I did forget about the houses next door. So there's going to be about 100 feet between their properties. I think you said, did you say 30 meters?
No, 30 feet,
30 feet.
10.58 meters at the closest point.
30 feet. So, well, that's relatively close. They were talking about how are they going to be protected during the construction. They think they were talking about a fence, and then afterwards to have trees planted. But there is nothing in writing. So, will that be in writing? Will that be in writing with the town?
Yes, through the site plan application, those obligations would be proposed by the applicant, reviewed by the town. The residents of Loring Doolittle Court can review those plans, and the owner has made a commitment to keep working with the residents. So yes, those things will be very clearly. They will be very clearly set out, and the owner will be obligated to do them. Yes.
Thank you. And the trees and everything will be covered.
Yes, a
There'll be
proposed
an agreement.
landscaping plan will be submitted with the site plan, listing the species, the size, the location of every tree to be planted on the site, and securities will be posted to ensure that that happens.
Will somebody be checking the walls, the interior of especially that one home, because in case there's vibrations, you want a before and an after?
So if the owners are interested in having a pre-construction survey done, i.e. taking photos of foundation walls and looking at all those type of things, that's something we can discuss with the condo board, sure. Obviously we're going to need access to the people's houses. It's up to them.
I think they would really appreciate that. And last question, is the pool going to be usable during construction?
The intention would be to keep it open during construction. Obviously, if there are any safety concerns, those would be covered. Those would have to be met. You couldn't, put anybody in jeopardy.
But it might be fenced off in such a way that it could be used in the evening when there isn't construction work.
That may be possible, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Gallo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sitting and listening, and you're relying on a kind of a user study to determine parking, and I'm sure you can appreciate from where we sit that when we develop official plans and zoning bylaws that we don't think specifically in terms of time and use in terms of time, and you've justified it by the usability of what the current state is. I haven't heard a lot about defending the reduction in parking based on our current zoning and what the town has deemed to be necessary for that particular zoning. Could you speak to that as opposed to what the current situation is on that property?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. The town sets a standard town-wide. That standard is one number for every development in the town. However, zoning bylaws are not meant to be a one-size-fits-all metric. There are site-specific considerations. That's why there are many site-specific bylaws throughout the town. And the current practice in among transportation professionals is to always accept the site utilization rates as more accurate and more applicable than any standard that's been established on a town-wide basis. That's why town transportation staff have reviewed and accepted the parking utilization study that has been submitted, which justifies a reduction from the town standard to what is there today. The site today doesn't function at the town standard, and yet there are vacant spaces through the utilization study. So it just goes to show that on this specific site, the town standard is quite a high standard compared to the way these people utilize and park on their own property.
Councillor Gallo?
I guess the question lies, at what point in time do you determine that? Because that's so fluid. If it's fully occupied, it may be very different than it is now. You went out there, I think, twice. Did we pick the right times to go out there to justify the results? There's quite a few questions in terms of that.
So those questions lead to the methodology of the parking study. And a parking study was submitted with the original application. There were questions raised by staff, there were questions raised by council and by the public, and additional utilization studies were done based on times and dates suggested by staff that would broaden the study time frame and data collected. And even the broadening and the additional data collected still support the fact that this site functions at about a 1.03 parking rate currently.
Councillor Gallo?
Thank you. And as just a thought and an option, because it's a bit of a complicated development in terms of, if this was raw land, we probably wouldn't be having a lot of these discussions, but it isn't, and it is what it is. And there's a lot of questions that are unanswered that would be answered during the site plan phase. And while perhaps not common, it's been done before, that a lot more detail in terms of the site plan, and maybe sometimes to the extent that the site plan is completed prior to even giving the zoning. I don't know whether this is an appropriate development to do that. I certainly know that it would answer a lot of the questions that are being raised tonight, and probably would be helpful to both sides to see a significant amount of detail in the development. And I fully appreciate that that's not an easy ask in terms of the developer, and that without the zoning, are they willing to put that extra work, not knowing at the end of the day whether they're going to get the zoning, and then you don't have a project. So I fully appreciate that. It's just food for thought.
Thank you, Councillor Gallo. Councillor Thompson, second time.
Thank you. We've all talked about parking. You've heard it by the residents. You've heard it from every member of council. The parking standard is 1.5, as you noted. It's across the town. You're proposing a parking standard of 1 unit per dwelling, essentially, and so I get a sense that council is going to send you back to the drawing board and try and find more parking. And if that happens, has there been any conversation between you and the applicant with regards to the ability to revisit the design and see if you can find more parking?
That discussion has not happened to date. Seeing the concerns that are here, we will definitely take that into consideration. We came in front of you today after having done detailed study and research through the parking utilization study, which again has been accepted by town transportation staff, justifying the parking that has been proposed here through this application. But the point is taken, and we will have that discussion again.
Councillor Thompson?
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, Council, thank you very much. Council,
thank you, Mr. Chair.
Someone want to put a motion on the floor? Councillor Kemp? What would you want to put the recommendation, or?
Yeah, I'll support the recommendation.
Seconder? He's moving what's in front of us. Go to GC. Seconder? I need a seconder first. Councillor Thompson? Go ahead, Councillor Kemp. One sec, Councillor Kemp. Go ahead.
We've had other projects in the past where, parking is always an issue. Whether we're deficient by 5%, 10%, or 20%, parking's always been an issue. There's never been a development where we said, wow, we have too much parking. It's always been not enough. And so that's never been, from my recollection, a reason not to go to GC, because going to general committee doesn't necessarily mean that we're approving this project. It just means they have that much more time to correct the issues that we've outlined. I don't think parking in itself is a reason in this particular situation to prevent it from going to GC. When I look at it as from last public planning to where it is today, a lot of, I think they've responded to a lot of the resident concerns, and I think that can be addressed by, the number of residents that are here today. I mean, last year we had, quite a few more, and I'm not saying that this diminishes the scale of the concerns, because these are valid concerns that we need to deal with. But I think in terms of the well-intended meaning of developers, they do want to work with the town. And I don't think, I think that would necessitate that, let's, continue to partner with them. They've said that they've listened to all of the adjacent residents, as well as the residents within the apartment complex. So I don't see that any of these issues here are big enough to stop this process, because, I mean, going back to a public planning process for a third time, that's not something that normally happens, and chances are it's not going to come back for a while. We've all already admitted that in terms of a lot of the other issues, in terms of snow, the construction process, those are things that are dealt with in the site plan process, and that comes much later. So, I'm happy to move this forward to GC. They'll have a lot of time between now and then to deal with parking, and if we're not satisfied, then we can, vote against the process at that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Councillor Gallo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just could I ask the director if you could just go through the process in terms of going to GC, the ability for the public to be involved in that, and then after that, what the next stage is. Either way, if we say yes or no at GC, please.
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Next steps would be to review the public submissions that we've heard tonight, and then review the plan that's before us, and to make any adjustments to those if we feel they're required or necessary. And then we would return likely to GC with a recommendation report on the proposal. And at that time, we would suggest any changes that are required. We would notify the residents of the forthcoming meeting when that happens.
Thank you. So just to be clear, it would come to a public meeting, and there would be a staff report with a recommendation from staff at that point, and then council would make a decision, and the public would be informed to come and participate in that, not to the extent the public planning meetings, but delegate and
Delegations,
communicate.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gallo. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. We have a responsibility under the Planning Act to make a decision on this application within 150 days of receipt. We received it, halfway through last year, so we're well beyond that period of time. And so council does need to make that decision, either to accept it or reject it. Similar to what Councillor Kim said, I think the applicant has heard loud and clear what they need to do in order to gain support from both the residents as well as members of council. And so my hope is that they listen to it, they make some further revisions to address those concerns and bring it forward to GC. Otherwise, I won't speak for all of council, but they certainly run the risk of having the application rejected. And so I'm fine to support it moving to GC, but I hope that the applicant has heard loud and clear the concerns and what needs to be done to move this forward. But again, we have a responsibility to make a decision, and we're well beyond that time period. And I think it's only fair for the residents to know what the outcome's going to be, and it's only fair for the applicant. So I'll support moving it to GC.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Humphreys.
Through Mr. Mayor, initially I was thinking automatically public planning, although the concerns we heard at the first and the second has been the same. It's still parking issues, and they're, you know, in my opinion, and I think all of us, majority, feel the same way. So if this comes back to a general committee, I do expect a guaranteed parking plan. And I do want staff's, you know, recommendations in terms of, you know, do they believe that the study is, you know, what we want to stand by? And also the relocation of these residents, that if they do get moved during the construction, that I want to understand exactly what that means to them. And, you know, I know it's still GC and it's not a site plan approval condition, but I would like that extra in there because we're very concerned with the parking. And if that doesn't get more positive feedback from the residents and ourselves, I'm going to have a tough time approving a GC as well. So we'll move forward at this point.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I go back to the comments I made on the chart, partly on the chart on page 18. It's at some point in time, what the exception zone and the developer want will be doable. But it's not, if nobody is going to lose their parking spot, we're only going to be left with 33 spots for the stacked townhouse units. And in the world the way it is now, especially as there may be 2 or 3 people or maybe 4 people living in those stacked townhouses, I just can't, it just doesn't make sense to me. And the only way it makes sense is if there's less coverage of the property by the developer for their building units. I don't see how this can change coming to a GC. I don't see how any of this can change. And with respect to off-site parking, even if the school board's aware, or in this case it's the one school board, even if they were amenable to having tenants park on their property, the summer, I mean, this is going to take, okay, let's say it takes a year if we're lucky. If we're not lucky, maybe it takes a couple of years. The summer is just a short time when the school board doesn't need those properties. And it's true, there are a lot of people going to summer school. It's a pretty busy place there. The way the proposal is set out, I don't think this is doable. So if we have to make a decision, then my decision is to reject it as is.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Any other comments or questions? Well, you know, I think that the applicant has heard loud and clear what our concerns are in regards to parking, and especially the residents' safety. You know, I too agree that we do need to make a decision tonight, whether it's to move it forward to GC or to deny it outright. You know, you cannot prolong this. We've said this many times through many applications that come to us. You know, but I can tell you right now, from my perspective, and from what I'm hearing from council, is that if this comes back and it's the exact same proposal, it's probably going to get rejected. So we want to see those changes that we're talking about and ensure that the area conforms to a vision of what this council wants to see, what the residents in the area want to see. You know, as Councillor Humphreys mentioned, even though the construction management plan comes during site application, you know, it would be good during that general committee meeting if there was a sense of where the displaced parking spots or the displaced residents that don't have any parking spot due to the construction, you know, is there any idea where they would be placed, where they would be able to park? If there was that sense given to us, there'd be more comfort from the residents and from council to be able to move forward. So, you know, with that being said, I will be in favor of moving to GC. But as I said, if the proposal comes back as presented tonight, I'll be voting against it at that GC meeting. Councillor Gardner, second time.
It's my third time. I understand what council is saying, but if we're expecting these problems to be solved with the applicant coming back with the same footprint, this is our second public planning meeting. We've already been over this, and there hasn't been any real change. So in the world of reality, how do we expect this to come back to a general committee meeting with the same footprint and all of these problems to be solved? So that's just why I feel that it needs to be rejected and a different plan come forward.
Councillor, I'll just add that I don't think anyone's expecting this exact same footprint to come back and magically more parking spots. I would expect, as this one has come back and they've altered it and reduced the size of one of the buildings, that could be a possibility, and hopefully that's where we go. As I said, if it comes back exactly the same, I would not be in favor of it. Council, any other comments or questions before I call the vote? Okay, I'll call the vote. That carries 6-1. Just to the members of the public, I'll just let you know, so it's not really a decision. This is just moving to general committee. There'll be an opportunity for the public to come back out, delegate, and basically we'll go through the same process again, but it won't be a public planning meeting. Council, we are at confirming bylaw. Councillor Humphreys, Councillor Gallo, call a vote. That carries. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Gilliland, Councillor Kim, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming out.